not in the hamper.
Hey, Mom, I'm sorry. I have to go.
Mom.
Yes, Apple. Robbie!
Everything's okay, right?
Fear so bitter, death is hardly more severe. That's pretty intense.
See, Holly's a real gourmet chef, too. We knew who loved pie the most.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us on Brave New Hollywood. My guest today is writer, filmmaker Dean Kapsalis, and the star of his film, Azura Skye. And we are here to talk about their new thriller called The Swerve. So my first question is for either one of you. What is The Swerve about? How would you describe it?
Azura, through your perspective.
All right. To me, this film is about the silent pain and the silent suffering that so many, I was going to say women, but I suppose just people in general endure. And just that feeling of having to keep it all together, and just that very tenuous edge that so many people, I feel, are existing on more and more, unfortunately, as things do indeed become more stressful and more tenuous. But it's a film, I suppose, about mental illness and about one woman's decline into that by the slow pull of a thread.
And Azura, was this role too much to take on? Was it heavy on you when you were working on it?
Going into it, I was fearful that maybe it would be, because it is a lot. As an actor, it's more than I've ever put myself through emotionally. In general, I tend to be pretty good at leaving my characters at work and not taking them home with me. And like I said, I was worried that this could be an exception only because she was so heavy. But luckily, I was able to disconnect. And it was, I feel like, the only way I was able to wake up and go to work and be Holly every day was by coming back to myself and starting with myself every day. Even when Dean would say cut between takes, I need to be really comfortable on set. I need to be really, really kind of loosey-goosey. I get a little silly. I need to be really, really comfortable and feel really safe in order to go to those emotional dark places when necessary. Luckily, staying in that emotional dark place is not my process, which is no choice of my own. It's just the way things happen for me. So.
And since we're on that subject, how does an actress feel safe on a set with a role like this?
It has in large part to do with the director. So I definitely credit Dean with that, in creating a safe space for me. And the crew also, and we had such a lovely crew on this film. They were all so happy to be there. They were all really young, which was really sweet, and it was exciting to see that. It was funny being, I think Dean and I, and Tommy, the producer, were probably the oldest people on the film by like 20 years. And we had all these kids running around working for us, but they were all so happy to be there, and they did such a fantastic job. And they too made me feel really safe.
Dean, this being your first feature film, why did you decide on this story? How did that come about for you?
The story of course I wrote it, but it comes from a place that I'm not exactly sure where, except, well, it started with an image, a sketch I did of a woman. I wrote Midnight in a Supermarket. And from there, it started from the character. Holly, I don't know where the name came from. It popped in my head. I started writing it from there. I grew up around a lot of strong women in my life, and some suffered from mental illness. Some experienced domestic abuse. these are things I found out, as I was growing up. And when you're a kid, you hear these things or learn them and you file it away. And as you get, you mature, you're like, oh, wow, I didn't, you start to think about these things. Or at least I did. And when I was working on, I've been working on a number of feature scripts, and this one really took hold in the sense that I wanted it to be my first feature. Right. So that, and I have a real love for, Greek tragedy, Shakespeare, Gothic heroines, books like Madame Bovary, House of Mirth, things like that just were in my psyche. And I think those came out with my personal experiences and all sort of came together. And I wanted to tell a contemporary version of it. And it came out through Holly and the Swerve. And the whole film was built as scripted as such. And we, again, as Azura said, tried to make the atmosphere as sort of lighthearted as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because
I think, I'm sorry.
Ahead,
I was going to say, I wonder if maybe the only way to make a movie like this and get through it, and when I say movie like this, I mean something so dark, is to have levity and have the process be relatively light and kind of easy breezy,
yeah.
As much as it possibly can be. And I just want to say one more thing about on Dean's comment about this film starting out with the sketch of the woman in the grocery store. I think for so many women in domestic situations, I think the grocery store really is an escape for so many people. I know from my own mother growing up, I would see it, she just like had to get away, just like needed a break. So, and she'd always go to the store,
Yeah.
Sometimes
yeah. Mine too.
Sometimes we could stay at home, but that was like her safe place, and she could just wander the aisles and have, all this time to herself. And I get it. And I think that's a safe place for a lot of women.
And I also wanted to ask you, I guess this is for either one of you, how much of Holly did you two create together?
Well, Dean created her on the page, of course. And I think from there, I kind of took it from there. I had an interpretation of the way I could play her. That was really the only way I knew how to be Holly and make Holly work. And in my discussions with Dean, it seemed like we were on the same page, and that I think he felt like I could represent the character that he wrote, and that was a good match. So I think once he cast me, I think he pretty much left me alone in terms of who she was and what I wanted to do with her. Of course, he would have thoughts here and there, but I would say I sort of left the filmmaking to him, and he kind of left the acting to me. I don't know if you would agree with that, Dean.
Yeah, it's beautifully said. I mean, yes. The only thing I'll add is I watched. It was not before Azura was cast. I watched what she did. I mean, I went through and found what I could and watched it, and then sat and seriously put a lot of thought into it and said, just. She can do it. She can do it. I mean, the look and voice and skill sort of came together, and it just it worked. It worked really well, and I knew once we spoke, I knew that she had her interpretation, and I just wouldn't dream of breaking that interpretation open, because I thought she was on the right wavelength with me, and. Once we, I saw it really coming to life when we were putting the costumes on. Once we had the costume designer dressing her, I was like, there we go. That's it. We'd do her hair and she'd be there and she was in character, and boom.
Dean, I also wanted to ask you a little more about casting. Every single person cast in this movie, even the smallest role, they are really good. and we
Thank you.
remember them. How did you pull all these people together?
I credit the casting director, Adrian Stern. She's fantastic, just fantastic. I mean, you know, she would say these people should give us show them to us, and then we would ask questions and then look. And she was very much hands off in a way. Like she wouldn't dream of telling us, you know, I want this person should be cast or that person. She wouldn't do that, but she's very respectful that way. But she put together a list and recommendations, and then we also did a lot of research on our own, the producer and I. Like Zach, I'm sorry. For instance, the actor who plays Paul, the high school student. I had this actor in mind. We looked at lots of other actors beforehand, but he was an actor I had in mind. And I said, please reach out to this one. And she said, I know him. And she said, I think he would be great. And he was. And I knew immediately that he was right for it.
He was so great. And that, I'll leave myself out of it, but I thought that the rest of the cast was so beautifully cast, and that casting of the Paul role and Zach Brand was so important to me, and I was so anxious to see who they cast, because obviously that's such a delicate, strained relationship in the film, and they really have to cast the right person in order to make that work. And I hadn't met him before we started filming. We didn't do a reading together or anything, which you often will do a chemistry read in a situation like that, but we didn't. So I was really grateful. And as soon as I met him, I was like, okay, this is great. It's going to work.
Yeah. As soon as I had sat down with him, and for, you know, in the space of like 2 hours, I knew immediately within the first 5 minutes that he was right for it. And we spent then the next 2 hours talking and going over things. And I was like, he'll be perfect. Because it was really, it was a bit nerve-wracking to cast that part for obvious reasons.
Last but not least, I know I'm running out of time here. Azura, as an working actress, what has changed, do you think, in roles women are getting or can go for nowadays? Is there a change that's happening now, or is that only in indie films?
I do think there's a change. It's funny, I was having a similar conversation with someone the other day about, you know, when I started acting as a teenager, I feel like you always heard about characters needing to be likable, especially female characters. You know, it's like, oh no, no one will like her if she has to be likable. But the fact is, it's, you know, everyone is in constant conflict. People are incredibly likable and extremely dislikable at the same time. And, you know, good people do bad things and bad people do good things. And I think that we are becoming much more open to just the human experience and different entry points into that. And no one is completely likable. So let's stop trying to manufacture this character. You know, I think so much beauty is found in the flaws and the bruising. So, and I think that's such more interesting territory to explore than something that's just always thoroughly likable. So I do think that we are evolving in that way. And, you know, as an actor, I'm grateful because, you know, look at Holly, for example. She's a very complex, conflicted character who I think is likable, yet she does some terrible things. And to me, I think that's most interesting.
I want to thank my guest, Azura Skye, actress, and filmmaker Dean Kapsalis. We're talking about the movie The Swerve, which will be out on digital and VOD on September 22nd. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Henrick. Take care.